All right, we are live, but I got to let it breathe just for a moment here. Bring on Facebook and mute the MHH Slack channel that is deciding to suddenly go off right now. And we are good. So, welcome in, everybody. This is the Mile High Huddle podcast, the gut reaction to an inglorious end to the Broncos 2023 season. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, as you share your gut reaction to today's whimper of a game, what does it say about this season? Just some of your thoughts about uh, the 2023 campaign. Did Sean Payton move the needle? What does it mean moving forward?
He did, and the word that you use is the way I feel right now. Like, to go out like this, last game of the season, you're playing for pride, want to snap the streak, and it was a whimper. It's kind of discouraging, but it's very fitting because this has been Jekyll and Hyde all season long from the Broncos. Whether they're a bad team and they became a good team, and they kind of became a bad team again. I don't take too much out of this one individual game because I treated it like a preseason exhibition contest. Nothing was really on the line, but I would have liked to see the Broncos go into next year with some momentum. But all it did to me was highlight how far they are from competing, how many needs they do have on the roster, and how much work they have ahead of them in 2024.
Oh man. And by the way, guys, I'm a little bit under the weather today, so I might not fully be myself. You know how that goes. But to go out that way, all right, it's bad enough, Zack, that you're going to lose, but the eighth straight loss to the hapless Raiders. This isn't like, at least while you were, I almost used a naughty, at least while you were suffering the losing streak to the Chiefs, Zack, you could console yourselves with, for a lot of that time, I'd say a majority of the time, it's one of the elite teams of the NFL, one of the top 2 or 3 teams. You've lost 8 straight to a bitterly hated division rival that sucks, arguably worse than you at times over the 8 games. It's stretched now, Zack, 4 seasons, and I just can't. I don't know. I understand the benefit here. The silver lining is the Broncos draft pick, moved up a couple spots from where they were. They're picking 12 in all likelihood, but that eats at me, dude. The Raiders, 8 games to a crappy team. I mean, we can't beat them whether it's a hand-picked head coach, Zack, or a freaking interim.
Whether it's Rich Bisaccia, Antonio Brown, the Raiders just have the Broncos number. I don't know what it is.
I bet Antonio Brown could coach them to a victory over the Broncos.
I say Antonio Brown, Antonio Pierce. Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
It's all good.
It doesn't really matter, but yeah, it's kind of discouraging. But then again, I am looking at the bright side to this, like we talked about on Thursday's show, Chad. The draft pick, if anything, I know losing sucks, but having pick number 12 is better than having pick number, say, 17 or 18 if you did win this game. All I'm saying.
I just also, like, as much as beating the Raiders would have been great, snapping the streak, I also just really wanted the losing season streak to end. Yeah. Alas, did not. But again, the silver lining, you're just outside the top 10. Chris jumping in with a very generous super chat that is always symbolic on the gut reactions. A $14 super chat to symbolize, of course, the total number of points the Broncos were able to put on the board in Vegas. Thank you, bro. A Mount Rushmore superstar in the house saying, let the crazy offseason begin. And Happy New Year, MHH fam. Happy New Year to you, big dog. And it is going to be a little bit of a ride this offseason, Zach.
It's going to be very much a ride. They're definitely going to have a quarterback search, controversy, rumors, everything surrounding that. It's always exciting when you draft a quarterback in the first round if the Broncos go that way. There could be a general manager search, Chad. George Payton, there's rumors that he might be safe, but you never know what Sean Payton decides. Like usual, it's never going to be a dull day in Broncos country, and at least we're not going to have to cover a head coaching search this time around.
True. I'm just pulling up the box score in case we need to go back to it. But Ted, brother, thank you for the super chat, jumping in early. He says, I wish the Broncos hated the Raiders half as much as Broncos fans do. Swept 4 years in a row by 4 different head coaches. Embarrassing. MHH for life. It is embarrassing. I think there's a few guys on the roster that do appreciate the gravity, historically anyway, of the Broncos-Raiders rivalry. I think Garrett Bowles gets it. Garrett Bowles is one of the few longtime Broncos that actually has experienced beating the Raiders. Justin Simmons has experienced it. I think guys like that, it is important to him, but This team, Zach, was very much swimming. Would have been bad enough. Russell Wilson maybe gives you a slightly better chance to win that game, but it's bad enough that the Broncos were swimming offensively. Like Jarrett Stidham, I talk about Sean Payton moving the needle in year one. Stidham did not move the ball forward 1 inch. If in hindsight, Jarrett Stidham, I don't know how much that really benefited the Broncos, Zach, to insert him for the final 2 games.
Because it wasn't about performance. It wasn't about a spark. It was about the contract, something Sean Payton wouldn't or couldn't say publicly. You're right. I haven't seen anything from we knew that too, Chad. We said nothing about Jarrett Stidham before he got his first start scream franchise quarterback. And nothing in these 2 starts screams that he should be the guy going into next season.
Riptide, no, it doesn't. Nothing. In fact, I mean, I see zero reason whatsoever to move forward with Jarrett Stidham in a role, any other role besides possibly a backup. Even a QB2, I'm not sure how great of an option he is, depending on what other options might be out there. But Riptide, brother, much love and respect. He says, really disappointed, kind of angry, tired of losing. I feel, dude, we feel you. Trust. And I'm especially tired of losing to the Raiders. Taylor, bro, thank you. Jumping in. Said George Payton's got to go. Horrible performance. I mean, I don't know. They're saying Ian Rappaport, Lance Sanderson had the article for us today. Ian Rappaport, he hedged a little bit, Zach, but he said it appears that the Broncos alliteration, what do you say? Illiterate triumvirate, Payton, Penner, Payton is going to remain a trio in this offseason. That's no guarantee that George Payton keeps his job, but it's a report.
There's no guarantee that he keeps his job in the current title either. Maybe they demote him to something like scouting director or assistant to the new whatever. I don't know that he's going to remain. It's no sure thing, but we talked about that as well a couple weeks ago, that don't be jumping to conclusions that they'd be firing George Payton. Maybe they want to make this work like a Loomis and Sean Payton.
Guys, sorry if I'm sounding a little like phlegmy and sniffly and all that. I apologize. Try to remember to mute my mic as much as possible. Patriot Tex, very generous of you, big dog. Thank you. Says the season ends as disappointingly as it began. Heard a report that Payton is coming back. Why? He put us in this mess. He's not a great talent evaluator nor a draft picker. Broncos are subpar for how much longer? George Payton got to go. Hashtag MHH for life. Zach, the Russell Wilson trade, I think there have been times where neither one of us wanted to really fault George Payton per se for making the trade, because based on all the information we had at the time, all the information that the NFL had on Russell Wilson, it was a 9-time Pro Bowler coming off his 10th season. You probably still, I mean, there's very few quarterback needy teams in that situation who probably don't make that trade, Zach. But how do you feel about that now, with 2 seasons in the books since the big move?
I am still not faulting and forever will not fault George Payton for taking that swing. It was a move that we all agreed should have been made, and we all supported it. It's more so the extension that there's rumors and rumblings that the ownership pushed for, and then pairing that big acquisition in Russell Wilson with a head coach like Nathaniel Hackett, which, like you talked about, Chad, the big issue with Russ, maybe he was ruined and David Card from his 2022 campaign with Nathaniel Hackett. I think those were the bigger whiffs, was the contract extension and hiring Hackett as the head coach. Looking back on it, I'd still make that trade for Russ.
See, hashtag ruined. That's what Hackett did to Russ. All right. Sorry, throw Michaela back up on there, Mr. Producer. The Duchess jumping in. Love you. Appreciate you, Michaela, so much. She says, this was garbage. The Broncos need to move up to draft a quarterback. Broncos fans deserve better than this garbage, as my mother would say. Broncos fans deserve better. Yes, they do. You're probably picking at 12, Zach. What do you suppose it might cost the Broncos to edge up into, let's say, the bottom half of the top 10?
A few spots, it's palatable. Third-round pick or a player, a combination of picks and players. It wouldn't be that much cost prohibitive compared to moving up in the top 5 or top 3 for a true blue chip quarterback. But now that's what I'm talking about. It sucks losing to the Raiders. We wanted to snap the streak, but if they do want to move up, it's a lot easier to when you're 12 as opposed to 17 or 18.
That's true. It was hot garbage, Michaela, but if it's about finding the answer at quarterback, it was the best possible scenario. That's the silver lining. As I talked about, Zach, on Thursday, I would have preferred to punctuate the season with a win,
Yeah.
snap the streak against the Raiders, and snap the losing seasons. What is it, 7 now in a row? But that is the silver lining. It does inch you a little bit closer to being within range. The top 3 are expected to be top 10 quarterbacks. Broncos are just outside, but at least now, Zach, they're within striking distance.
Yeah, it comes down to the evaluation, and that's a months long process between now and April. Whether they like Penix or McCarthy or Bo Nix, that's for Sean Payton to decide. But if they want one of them, there's more of a chance they can get them by finishing 12th.
Guys, lots more to get to. Your comments, supers. We want your reactions. But first, guys, we got to remind you, even though the Broncos season is officially in the books, you got to continue to make Little Caesars, which is the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your playoff watching experience. It's always a big part of the week here at Casa Jensen. That's a fact. It's all of our favorite pizza in the Jensen family. And you got to order online if you want to capitalize during the pizza pregame, 1 hour before, 3 hours after NFL kickoffs. And that's all day Sunday as well. And get ready for some football and fun. You choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, Zach, you win.
The downside to the Broncos, 7 straight losing seasons. The upside to Little Caesars is you win every time with their fantastic pizza, their crazy bread, anything you can desire, you should try. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
All right, back to the chat. Let's see what's on everybody's mind. We got Franklin Lewis jumping in. Thank you, Franklin. Says, can we take the time to thank Mile High Huddle and their staff for all the content this year? You're very kind. Thank you. Thank you for the news throughout the season and all the work you guys put into it. Thank you on behalf of us fans. That's very, very sweet and kind of you, Franklin. We do appreciate it. And we'll continue doing it 365 days a year, so long as you guys keep showing up for us.
We do it for you. We do it for each and every one of you. Thank you. And we'll continue to each and every day.
Casey Nickel, one of the Mount Rushmore superstars of 2023. Casey, shoot us an email with an updated, in case you missed it, an updated address, physical address, and t-shirt size. Got a little something coming your way as a top 20 super chat superstar from last year. Really appreciate you. It says, now we prep for the real future with Sean Payton. Decent draft position. Sean will get Michael Penix or in later rounds, Bo Nix. I'm ready for a bright future ahead. Yeah, man, we can talk about some of the warts and the holes on the roster, but much of this gets covered and at the very least mitigated and alleviated when you have a bona fide franchise quarterback. Still a huge gaping hole for the Broncos.
Very much so. And yeah, we can all debate, and we're going to have these debates between now and draft day. Should it be Penix? Should it be Bo Nix, McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, who I'm very high on, though I don't think the Broncos will have a chance at in the first round. We're going to have these conversations going forward, but it's by default in Sean we trust, Casey. Whatever quarterback, if he goes that route, he deems is the guy, we have to get behind him on that evaluation.
No doubt. The Ronk jumping in. Thank you, Mike. So good to see you, big dog. It is the gut reaction. We're so stoked to have you with us. Mile high salute right back at you, my friend. Zach, you like Jaden Daniels. I haven't paid attention to too many mocks. I'm going to start, obviously, now that the season's in the books. When the season's going on, dude, I'm too busy. Zach and I are in the same boat on this. We're too busy covering the grind of the season because the NFL season, unlike NBA, MLB, anything else, college is a little bit closer to it, but it's a regimented news cycle that basically locks you in week to week. You can forecast and expect what's going to happen. And so you can easily get to creating content, covering the stories that are happening around your team. And because of that, Zach, I don't spend too much time on the draft. I don't have the time, but have you checked out any recent mocks and where is Daniels falling?
I'm right there with you. Now is when I put my off-season hat on, my draft hat on. I'm going to defer to the real draft experts like Scott Kennedy, our producer in the side chat. He says that Daniels won't get past 4. And even if he get past 4, he won't get past 5 or 6 or 7, whatever. He's not going to come anywhere near the Broncos range. I do like him a lot, though the upside is it's a pretty strong top-heavy quarterback class from what I've studied so far. I would not mind Michael Penix if he dropped even to 9. I'd move up and make sure the Broncos get their guy if he is deemed, in fact, the guy.
So looking at Tankathon, where we were, figuring out where the Broncos are now drafting as an 8 and 9 team. Caleb, they've got through this aggregate, I guess, Caleb Williams going number 1 overall to either the Bears or the Panthers they have here as a possibility. Drake May, number 2, Jaden Daniels, number 3, followed by Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm just seeing here the next quarterback is Penix on Tankathon anyway at number 8. But some of the guys that we trust relative to their draft expertise are thinking this is going to be more like last year, where there are only 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 45, and that may be the first 3 picks of the draft. Zach Naj jumping in, bro. Love you.
Thank you, Naj. Wow.
Thank you for the support, dude. Keep your chin up. I know we don't have to worry about a guy like Naj keeping his chin up. This dude has mastered mindset a long time ago. Believe. He says, hey, brothers, a sickening, disgusting finish to another disappointing season. Sean Payton did nothing to make me feel good about the future. It's clear we need a quarterback and a lot of help on defense and playmakers. Shake my head. Brutal, bros. Yeah, I mean, the disappointment is real right now, and I feel you on that, and that's what we're here for. That's why the gut reaction is what it is. It's here to help us all work out our hormones in the immediate aftermath of the game. But I would pick a bone with you on that. Payton has done nothing to make me feel good anyway about the future. He has moved the needle forward. I do question the utility, as I talked about a few minutes ago, of benching Russ with just 2 games left to go. Other than just, I get it, you're covering your rear end on the contract, but still, like, I don't know about that. However, we're talking about a 3-game improvement in the standings over last season, even after starting 1-5 and overcoming some pretty significant obstacles along the way relative to the defense's historically bad start, an up and down quarterback, an offense that just failed to launch at any point during this season. And I get it. Payton's supposed to be the guy, the brainchild that solves those things. But in year 1, the broadcast talked a little bit about this, Zach, today, and I found myself going, yeah, that's 100%, which is he's shown improvements. Has he gotten the Broncos to where they wanted to be after 1 year? No, they wanted a playoff berth. They wanted an end to all this kind of bad juju, but he has moved the needle. I think it's palpable. Is it enough? No. I am still hopeful in the future, and I'm really curious to see now, Zach, what it's going to look like for Sean Payton to go out and handpick his future franchise quarterback.
Yeah, he did move the needle, and we can say he's easily the best coach since Kubiak, but in the end, how did that avail the Broncos? It's the same end result. And since we've been doing this podcast, at least, Chad, the same end-of-year result has been 2018. No, non-winning record, no playoffs. 2019, 2021, 2, 3. At this point, speaking for me personally, I'm a little numb and apathetic to it. The Broncos have gotten closer, but what I worry about is that they've resembled a lot of what Sean Payton was in New Orleans, and that's a 9-8, 8-9 kind of hovering around 500 team. I want more than that. It's not good enough that they simply won 3 more games. They have to get back into the postseason. They have to be competitive and relevant consistently, and all too often this year, the one takeaway, Chad, was inconsistency from quarterback, from the defense and the coaching staff. It wasn't good enough, even with Sean Payton.
No doubt. Phil, brother, down in Tucson, you prove every single day the Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a state of being. He says, good evening to everybody. What a sad team. Moments only of offense. Moments only off of offense. Same with the defense. Just terrible play calling. And Stidham is not the answer. Hashtag Buckham. MHS. Yeah. Look, I don't think too many of us were really getting our hopes up that Stidham could be the answer. I mean, in Sean Payton's defense, or I should say from Sean Payton's point of view, he was signed to come in and be a fail-safe for Russell Wilson, right? Just in case. I think maybe Sean Payton and the Broncos got their read on Stidham a little bit wrong, Zach, where they talked about, hey, quietly, that was a very important signing for us. They really, I think, put too much of their evaluation on how he performed as a backup in Vegas last year. 2 kind of outlier performances, neither of which resulted in a win. And, you got to see what caliber of quarterback Stidham is over the last 2 weeks. He's a replacement level guy. You can replace him with almost any other quarterback floating around the NFL. I mean, he's replacement. That's what he is, replacement level.
No, he is, and it's annoying when you have no other hope on the roster, but it's bearable when you have replacement level like Stidham, a hold the fort guy, when there's someone waiting in the wings. So it won't be so frustrating and so pointless and redundant to watch Stidham if he has a Penix behind him or a Bo Nix behind him waiting in the wings next season. But for these two games when Russ is his number 2 and DiNucci is, I guess, the number 3, there's just nothing really to build on here other than confirming what we all thought. Stidham is not a franchise quarterback, nor a starting quarterback in the NFL. Not even close to that.
Thank you, Phil. Much love and respect to you, big dog. But it has been a disappointing end. Is it 7? They've won 7 of their last 10. I think it's 7 of their last 11. The Broncos won after a 1-5 start. That's a trend that is something to, I think, be positive about heading into the offseason. The Lady D jumping in from the top rope. So generous, Deanna. Love you. Thank you so much. A Mount Rushmore superstar in the house. She says, we need to go after a quarterback. Looking forward to next year. I love the Broncos. Like, share, and subscribe to the greatest podcast, Mile High Huddle podcast. Yeah, bridge the gap. MHH for life. Love you, Lady D. Thank you. Appreciate your positivity. And yes, the time is soon a coming, Zach. Go after the quarterback. They're going to have to figure out, pull the trigger on whatever the decision on Russ is, and then just rip that Band-Aid off and move forward. The Duchess jumping in as well. The first face on the 2023 Mount Rushmore right here before your very eyes, Michaela Parker with her second super chat tonight saying, if you want Penix, you're going to probably need to move to number 3. Is that even doable? Solid no on Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy. Yeah, I mean, there are some people who think that the doubts about Penix and his injury concerns are overblown, that he's going to be drafted a lot higher than a lot of the mocks. I don't know what to think on it. All things being equal, if you didn't have to worry about the injury concerns, number 3, number 4, number 5, a top 5 projection would be realistic, but I still am a little bit doubtful a team will be willing to pull the trigger that high with some of those concerns. But he is a dynamic young quarterback who might convince some guys, some GM out there, Zach, an owner to, overcome their fears.
To the previous thing about looking forward to finding a quarterback, I share that optimism. The Broncos needed to rip this Band-Aid off and finally draft and develop their own guy for 7 years now. So it's the sooner they do it, the better. And it's going to be exciting to see who Sean Payton picks. Michaela, Penix at number 3. I'm not sure he'll go that high, but it's going to take a mortgaging of the future to move into that range. And I'm like, if you're going to move to number 3, why not go to number 2 and get Drake May, or number 1 to get Caleb Williams if a team would part with them? That would take trading a Patrick Surtain, multiple first-round picks. Chad, I just don't know after the last 2 years if they're willing to do that kind of blockbuster again.
It really depends, I think, a little bit on, at least anyway, how the board falls. Like, quote of the day down in Lubbock. What's going on? Thank you, big dog. Appreciate you. Mac Dog says Michael Penix, the best pick at number 12 if he's there. He might be. If he's there, that would be also assuming that Williams, May, and Daniels are off the board. If he's there at 12, he might be, but there still are those injury concerns that you really have to seriously consider, because you could maybe, Zach, talk yourself into, if that's how the draft order shook out and it was too rich for you to move forward or to move up, to say, take an edge rusher at 12, get yourself a Batman edge rusher, live to take another, to hope for a quarterback, maybe even move up a little in round 2 on if Penix falls or if Bo Nix is there or McCarthy, and which would, unfortunately, Zach, if that is how it shook out, to me, you would still probably be kicking the franchise QB can down the road a little bit, but at least Payton would have a relatively high drafted quarterback to kind of start developing.
That's the thing. We don't know how the board is going to shake out, so it's tough to project right now. But we have Ryan, 999 Super. Thank you so much, Ryan. Good to see you on this gut reaction. What up, Priest? Now that we are at pick 12, is it feasible or worth it to move up for one of the big 3, Daniels, Penix, Williams, in that order? In my opinion, that boils down to, Ryan, whether you want to give up just another multiple first-round pick package, whether you want to part with someone like Patrick Surtain or Justin Simmons, you're going to uproot a lot of your capital, a lot of your roster to go for an unproven commodity. And when you're talking about Penix, because I don't know it's all that feasible. Realistically, they're not going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. They're not going to be in the Drake May. We could talk about Penix, though. The injuries, from what I've read, he hasn't really had an aggravation since, I think, 2 years ago. So he did deal with some injuries early in his career, but he's been relatively injury-free lately. My bigger concern is that because he's a lefty, his blindside protector would be Mike McGlinchey. That is more of an issue to me, how he would adapt and what the Broncos can do. Because as we learned, it's not solely the quarterback, Jarrett Stidham, Russell Wilson. The O-line in Denver this year, PFF can say they were great. They were very spotty at times, including this evening's game, and that has to get cleaned up no matter who's back there, what rookie's back there.
So real quick, and thank you, Ryan, big dog. Here's just a look at it, kind of the scuttlebutt of how the board is perceived. And keep in mind, you've got Combine, you've got Senior Bowl, Shrine, pro days. A lot of key events on the pre-draft trail are yet to take place. So just keep that in mind. Players' stock often rises and falls based on these things. But look, you've got Williams projected 1, May 2, Daniels 3. And look at this, Zach. Caleb Williams, 30 touchdowns to 5 picks. Drake May, 24 touchdowns to 9 picks. Jaden Daniels in the SEC, significantly stiffer competition, 40 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. You see another quarterback at pick 8. That's Penix with 35 touchdowns to 9 picks. He had significantly more passing yards this season than any of the other guys. And then there is not another quarterback in round 1. So I'm just showing you guys this as an illustration of, you might have a chance at that 4th quarterback without necessarily having to sell the farm. But if you want to try and get in position for one of the top 3 guys, you're doing what you've done again the last 2 years, which is mortgaging the future on a hope. And at a certain point, Zach, I think you got to stop doing that. I think that's part of what has fueled the situation that the Broncos find themselves in, is that they haven't had the capital from a personnel perspective to continue keep stocking the shelves in a way that keeps up with their rivals in the AFC West and all that stuff. So to me, I'm saying, hey, hold tight at 12. If there's a guy there like Penix at 8, Scott, what do you think it would take to trade up from 12 to 8, just as an example? Like, tell me in the chat. And then, Zach, your thoughts.
I agree. I don't think they're going to go up to 1 or 2. That's why looking at 8 or 9 would be more realistic. It would be just a package that you don't have to give up multiple first rounders for. But I tend to agree, they could use help no matter what position they're looking at. We talked about this on Thursday. If it's an edge rusher, like you talked about, quarterback, receiver, offensive lineman, secondary, I mean, they can need help across the board. And I don't think they're going to mortgage the overall outlook of the roster by trying to shoehorn in a quarterback. If he's the guy, he's the guy. But I don't see any bombastic moves to go get that guy.
So Scott's saying, if you want to get from, for example, pick 12 to pick 8, you're giving up 2 first, meaning this year's first, obviously you're swapping that pick, and next year's first. But if it got you a Penix, what I don't want, Zach, is, next year's first, the year after's first, this year's 2, next year's 2.
Yeah.
All these, wiping your future, the slate completely clean in hopes that it's the right guy. That's where I get uncomfortable. Could you live with the Broncos simply giving up next year's first round pick to land a Penix or a Daniels or one of these guys that maybe slips past the top 5?
I can live with that. Yeah, I don't want another bare cupboard, because you think about it, the Broncos are going to be so underwater with the salary cap, Chad. They're going to have to be relying on these rookie contracts and squeezing as much as they can from that. So they can't afford to be giving away capital. I hold true to that belief. On January 7th, for something 3 months away, if it gets closer to pick 12 and someone's on the board like Penix at 8 or 9, they might jump up. Don't expect, though, a blockbuster move to 1 and 2.
Scott says here to us in the green room, gonna cost the Broncos their 12th pick this year, next year's first round pick, and Patrick Surtain as basically the conversation starter if you want into the top 3. To me, uh, that's too rich. I don't know. Just if this was, Zach, a decision being made in a vacuum, meaning like irrespective of the very recent past where the Broncos have mortgaged their future in back-to-back drafts, I might say, you know what, to heck with it. Yeah, I'm down for that. If it gets you one of those 3 guys, then sign me up. But I've just seen the wages of such desperation of late, and I'm not certain the juice is worth the squeeze.
I'm not either. I don't think Flying Anger Pig is down with that either. 999 super. I hate these losing seasons. George Payton crippled our salary cap and crippled our roster talent. Go get Adam Peters, former Broncos front office exec, now works with the Niners, right-hand man to John Lynch. I am sorry for my negative views. Sometimes I wish I didn't love the Broncos. MHH for life. You don't have to ever apologize about having negative views when the Broncos, for 7 years, Flying Anger Pig, have given you nothing to really be positive about, except for a winning streak and beating Kansas City one time. It sucks how they ended the season. It sucks after not going to the playoffs, another losing record. All we can do is hope that the front office is reshuffled in a way where it puts the Broncos in position for success and they get that quarterback situation figured out once and for all.
Amen to that. Your handle, Flying Anger Pig, it reminds me of, I'm going to date myself here. Scott will know what I'm talking about. He's old like me. But it reminds me of, do you remember that Green Jelly song, their one and only song, The Three Little Pigs? Little pig, let me in, based off the old nursery rhyme. And it was like one of those old school claymation videos. For some reason, your handle made me remember that music video. I digress. Patriot Tex, brother, thank you. Number 2 says Broncos need to get a quarterback, edge, and a real right tackle in this draft. Next year, go get a tight end, a receiver, and a linebacker. Yeah, I mean, the first things first, dude, you got to figure out the most plausible path to a quarterback. And yes, beyond quarterback, like if the Broncos, let's say, hey, we're having this conversation, Zach, a week from now because the Broncos made the playoffs with Russ and got bounced in the first round, and nobody's wringing their hands as much as they are right now over quarterback, or it's not a big of a question mark for the roster. I would be like blaring out edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher, round 1, edge rusher, edge rusher. But when you are without a franchise quarterback, everything else takes a back seat to getting that solved.
This is what I talked about a few seconds ago. It's even if they miss out on a quarterback in round 1, you throw a dart and you would land on a Broncos need, whether it's an edge, whether it's an interior front 7 member. The entire front 7 needs work. The offensive line could use a new center, maybe a new tackle, maybe a new safety, cornerback if you trade Surtain, yada, yada. They can go any direction. And that's what's fortunate if you lose this game about getting the highest pick possible. Chad, moving up for a quarterback wouldn't have even been a discussion if they would have won this game against the Raiders. A meaningless game overall. Let's not kid ourselves. They would be too far out of range to even have this conversation. So there's a silver lining in another defeat to Vegas.
That's what I'm hanging on to right now, baby. Raj, thank you. Good to see you on Facebook. Very kind. Your support. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure listening to you all year. Thanks for your perspectives. Thank you for being there. Very kind. 1, Payton's play calling has been strange and predictable all season. 2, does Vance Joseph keep his job? I do think Vance Joseph keeps his job. I wouldn't have said that in week 7. That's for dang sure. But I do think he, going into the MHH meet and greet, for example, Zach, I was saying, yeah, there's almost no chance this cat keeps his job beyond the season, but he saved it. I really do believe that. Payton's play calling has been bland for the most part, but a big part of that, I know, is the quarterback limitations, the quarterback wherewithal. And there is some talent deficiency on offense. Like Cortland Sutton, for example. I mean, today, I guess you got to forgive him a little bit, Zach, because he's been gone for the better part of 2 games, but drops a big third down early. Right. I mean, it wouldn't have been an easy catch, but that sideline catch early on that he let hit his chest, and, you got to catch that one. There was another big one on third down that wasn't an ideal ball, but you got to catch that. The Broncos need those dynamic skill players that find a way to make those plays when the chips are down. Now, to Cortland's credit, he has made a lot of those type of plays this year. He has shown you a version of himself, Zach, much closer to that 2019 Pro Bowler than anything since he tore his ACL a few years back. So that is a silver lining. That's something to be said. But Jerry Jeudy, I mean, I'm ready to say, hey, he is what he is. Let's not go on pretending he's going to ever become like a CeeDee Lamb, for example, or a Justin Jefferson. He is what he is. And beyond those two guys, Marvin Mims, they made a good point of this. I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I'm serving it back. They made a good point of this on the broadcast today, how many of Marvin Mims' targets have been screen type of passes and just short lateral type of things. Get him more involved down the field like you did early in the season where, Zach, this is a guy that was on pace for 1,000 yards a quarter of the way into the season. Then he had those two drops fumbles against the Jets, and Payton basically pulled him from the offense. And when he worked him back in 2-3 weeks later, it was in a totally different way.
How often does Sean Payton compare himself or the Broncos to the Lions and what Dan Campbell has assembled over there? Well, the Lions, they are chock full of offensive weapons, from Amon-Ra St. Brown to Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery and Laporta. Even with a average quarterback like Jared Goff, it's just you have to have the weaponry around the quarterback, and the Broncos have showed that they don't have the horses, pun intended. But the second part of that question can answer the first. I do think VJ will stick around, because if things continue to go south or don't go north in Sean Payton's second year, you got rid of one scapegoat, or you're getting rid of one in Russell Wilson. The next one would be Vance Joseph, and the one after that could be George Payton as well. So I do think Vance will stick around, if only because they start out slow next year. Oh, see you, Vance. It's on you. It's not on me.
True. Rip Diet jumping in again. There is no silver lining when you lose to the Raiders. I hate them more than any team. As well you should. You're a Broncos fan. You should hate them. And I'm not trying to tell you to feel good about this in any way, shape, or form. But a silver lining is the idea that something good can come out of something bad if you're looking for it. And that's the hope right now. Draft time, Broncos country jumping in. Thank you, brother. By the Broncos losing this game, they go to third in the division on next year's schedule. It'll be easier. They get higher draft picks. Go all in, says Zach for Drake May.
Ooh, that's certainly a take. If you, first of all, it would take two to tango. The team that's eyeing Drake May in the top two, no matter whoever that may be, they'd want to not take Drake May in that spot, so they'd want to move off from that pick. I think the top two are pretty much set, Chad. I think Caleb Williams and Drake May are going where they're going, and the Broncos will have to just settle for the next tier down. Maybe not even Jaden Daniels. We were talking about Michael Penix. You're talking about Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy. We can debate the fit and the best quarterback for the Broncos. I just don't see Drake May, as good as he is, being a possibility.
I don't either. I think your best hope of the top three is maybe, possibly, just, this much of a chance, Jaden Daniels, but really it starts with Penix, and it might could be, guys, to quote my friend BA, it could be Bo Nix ends up as, when you get past those first three guys, as the best possible fit for Sean Payton relative to what he likes to do, or at least going off, Zach, the kind of brand of offense the Saints played all those years with Drew Brees. But Xander jumping in. What's up, bro? He says, Titans are our target at pick 7 for the 4th QB on the board. That's the odds. Not sure what that's worth, but without a solid O-line, a new QB injury, yikes, what's the risk worth? Well, again, I'm going to sound maybe a little contradictory here, Zach, because I am a little gun shy and I'm a little traumatized from all the trading and stuff the last couple of years relative to the Broncos' first 2 rounds in the draft. But you can't move the needle forward beyond what you've seen. This year, Zach, is literally your best possible outcome. 8-9, pardon me, 9-8, like that kind of ballpark is your ceiling without a bona fide franchise guy. Yeah. So then the question becomes, what wouldn't you pay to solve that? Guys get paid millions and millions of dollars at Dove Valley to make those kind of decisions. But at number 7, being in position, as we talked about a little bit earlier, you're giving up at least next year's first round pick to get from 12 to 7. I would guess to get to 7, maybe even add like a third rounder or something. It would be costly.
Yeah, I just don't either. I don't know either if the Titans are a surefire landing spot. One thing I've learned in the last couple of years, it's just because the team drafts a quarterback high doesn't mean they won't get rid of that quarterback if they like a new one the next year, a la Josh Rosen in Arizona. I don't know that Will Levis has done enough in Tennessee to solidify himself as the full-time starter there. Malik Willis isn't really in the competition to start, so maybe number 7 could be a jump up for the Broncos. But still, is it worth it? It's subjective to give up all that capital to move up for an unproven commodity.
I mean, plus Levis was what was he, a second round pick last year? Or yeah. Anyway, okay. Guys, we're at 40 minutes, so we're starting to get on the back nine of tonight's show. Any burning topics, get it in the chat. Aussie Wombat jumping in. That's a newer name. Definitely
Welcome.
down in Australia, though. So welcome. See, hashtag state of being. Payton hasn't drafted a rookie quarterback. Why start now? He's talking about Sean Payton hasn't drafted a rookie quarterback. But you're missing out on a key part of the context here. He hasn't had to.
Exactly.
Ever. Because when he was a rookie head coach himself back in 2006, the Saints made a huge push, massive push to sign Drew Brees, who every team in the NFL, including the quarterback needy teams like the Nick Saban-led Miami Dolphins of that era, kicked the tires, but ultimately decided, no, we're worried about that shoulder. We're going to go with Dante Culpepper instead of Drew Brees. Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis, they weren't worried about the shoulder. They felt like he was good and they were seeing the upside, and that's where they went. And basically right out of the gates, 2006, he wasn't quite the, future Hall of Famer yet, but he made it clear out of the gates, did Drew Brees, that Sean Payton made the right decision on the quarterback to get started with his tenure in New Orleans. And then from there, Zach, it was 14 years of stability at quarterback. That wasn't even a consideration. 1 year did Sean Payton remain as head coach in New Orleans, Zach, post Drew Brees. I don't remember where they were picking following the 2020 season, so I don't recall where the Saints were picking it in the 2021 draft, but that probably played a big role in whether or not, and also Sean Payton's commitment to staying with the Saints probably had a lot to do, Zach, at that point, on just how bullish he was on, hey, let's sell the farm and go find the post Drew Brees quarterback for the Saints.
That's the biggest gripe I see about Sean Payton on Twitter is that, he can't develop a quarterback. He never has. Nothing in his history would suggest that he could do it, and the Broncos shouldn't. Well, he never had to, number one. And number two, even if he was terrible at it, even if he had a proven track record of being a crappy quarterback developer, the Broncos have to keep swinging for the fence, because you have to keep swinging until you hit that home run. They try with Paxton Lynch. You try with Russell Wilson. You've tried in between. They have to keep going until they get their guy, but not focusing on sloppy seconds, not focusing on reclamation projects or another team's trash. That's a step in the right direction, is taking your own guy and building him up in your team's and your coach's vision from day one.
So for what it's worth, Payton's last draft with the Saints, and this is, of course, his only draft post Drew Brees, the New Orleans Saints drafted defensive end Payton Turner at pick 28. So they were deep in the first round. Mike, bro, Mount Rushmore superstar, bro, send us that email with your address and t-shirt size. We got a little something for you. Good evening, he says, gentlemen, and the Great Mile High Huddle family. Here's a different spin. Any chance Sean Payton resigns? I just wonder if we'll see a power struggle. Great show. Go MHH. I don't think so. I mean, I don't have any reason to believe Sean Payton wants out. Like, he knew when he took this job that the quarterback position wasn't perfectly solved, depending on what reports you want to believe. Do you want to believe reports? Do you want to believe Payton's coach speak himself and the things he said about Russ when he first landed in Denver? But the most recent reporting, Zach, claims that Sean Payton had many concerns about Russ, but knew that he'd have to give him a shot and see what he could do to fix him. And he was going to do his damnedest to try and turn this ship around, but he had his doubts. And the ownership, which was, according to Payton, the number one reason he wanted the Broncos job, was the ownership situation, which can't fault him, Zach. It's the richest ownership group in the NFL. That's a long-winded way of saying he still is getting everything he wants in terms of There's no new information here. There's no curveball been thrown at him. The situation remains the same. And you're coming off of a year where it's like, all right, let's kind of reflect and look back on what was achieved in year one. Yeah, we didn't win the division. Yeah, we did not make the playoffs, but we did improve on the totals. I mean, 8 wins for the Broncos is a massive improvement on anything they've done since Gary Kubiak resigned.
Sean has about 18 million reasons not to walk away from the Broncos job. And Mike, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't walk away from any one of those 18 million if I was Sean. So he's going to come back and he'll get more leeway and more autonomy to instill his culture. But after benching Russ and maybe making some changes and tweaks to his coaching staff and personnel, which are definitely coming, more eyes and the pressure will be ramped up on Payton in 2024.
George, my brother, thank you for being you, big dog. Says, thanks for making a bad year a little better with your team of guys, MHH for life. Thank you, big dog. Appreciate you. Flat Earth Trini jumping in. Appreciate you, Trini, to say Broncos looked lethargic, poor tackling on defense, played like a team that the organization is giving up on. Sean Payton has work to do, to say the least. As fans, we've got to sink with the ship. Yeah, you either sink with the ship or you rise with the tide, and Sean Payton is looking to find that quarterback that can create that tide, and he's going to get his chance. He's got the resources this time as far as draft capital, positioning. Like, you're there. There will be opportunities. It's going to be fun to kind of navigate, Zach, all the strategy, the buzz, rumors, reports from here on out.
Yeah, Jesse Fraley, $5 super. Thank you so much, Jesse, for hopping in with us tonight on the gut reaction to the season finale. Jesse says, with only 6 picks next year, if we don't get Penix, should we trade back and get a late first and a second-round pick? This is another question, and it's a good one, Jesse, but it's hard to answer without knowing who's on the board, at least in my opinion, at that time. If Penix isn't there, if is the second-rated guy on the board, the third-rated guy. If they don't have their top 3, I would consider stockpiling capital. But they're in such a dire need for playmakers and impact players that my inclination would be to stand pat and take the best available player, no matter who that is, where they play, because, Jesse, the Broncos need help all up and down the roster.
Marcus Lewis Henna from across the pond. What's going on, brother? Good to see you. Appreciate the stars. Still don't have a proper receiver other than Sutton because Judy ain't it. You could say that again, my friend. But I still have a lot of hope in rookie Pro Bowler Marvin Mims Jr. Barely even, you can't even say scratching the surface. Like, they didn't utilize him much at all. They didn't try to utilize him much at all in the receiving game this year. And I do, Zach, expect that to change moving forward. But the outlook on all these wide receivers improves dramatically when you solve the quarterback.
Absolutely. And solve the blocking up front to allow the quarterback to find the receivers down the field. They need help all over, is my point.
Ernie, brother, thank you on Facebook. Says, I'm so sick of both our starting tackles. Bowles, when he's at his best, is average. McGlinchey was below average all year. And Sean Payton never seems to give him any help. He left Cam Fleming out there against Crosby one-on-one all night. Crosby was in the backfield before Fleming could get out of his stance. Yeah, today's game was not so good. The Broncos relinquished a total of 5 sacks on Jarrett Stidham. Zach, those are Russ Wilson type of numbers in the sack department.
Cam Fleming is not it. He's exposed as being just average and no better than McGlinchey and pass pro. And this is what my point, Ernie, and I think a point that a lot of Broncos country echoes. If they don't get a quarterback in round 1, okay, well, if you need a tackle, take the best available tackle. You can use an edge rusher. You can use a cornerback, a safety. They're in a position where the number one takeaway from another losing season, non-playoff season, they need impact players across the board.
You also need better help at running back. I mean, this is, unfortunately, we talk about the season ending with a whimper. Javonte Williams' season ended with a bit of a whimper as well. And I don't just mean this game, but really the last quarter of this season. Like, he has epitomized 3 yards in a cloud of dust today. 9 carries, 32 yards, and that 1 touchdown he did get late. 3.6 yard average. P. Ryan averaged 2.3 today. McLaughlin averaged, Zach, 1.5. I mean, bad across the board. You need some skilled players, but I remain convinced, I know this in my heart, I've seen it, bona fide quarterbacks make all those guys who aren't looking so hot with the Stidhams and the Russes look a little bit different. So I think you just have to focus on solving that first, letting those chips fall, and then filling those holes, any other holes that pop up beyond that as you go, kind of, Zach, on the fly. That remains priority number one. You got to solve quarterback.
Yeah, because look at Houston and C.J. Stroud. Except for Laramie Tunsil, can any casual fan name a starting offensive lineman on their team or a starting skill position player? You get the quarterback, everything else kind of falls into place.
Well said. The Triple C in the house. Colby, our future is mortgaged. Push it back any further. Coach won't be around when we get out of it. The O-line stunk today. We have so many other holes. We are still in a world of suck.
That we are.
I mean, bottom line is, yes, it has improved, but we're picking gnat crap, to quote my dad, out of pepper when we talk about the fact that it is an improvement, but you're still posting another losing season, Zach. You're still missing the playoffs. It's not good enough. The O-line, though, I'll say this. It's had its warts this year, especially in pass pro, but for me as an analyst, it's been really hard to hang too much on that when I know how hard Russell Wilson makes it, especially for his edge guys in pass protection. I think you saw last week, not today, last week's game, Stidham, more kind of what you can expect from this O-line moving forward as a template if it's kept together, for the most part, depending on who that next quarterback is. If it's another guy who makes all of his money, Zach, as a off-schedule backyard hero, then you can expect probably more of the same. But if it's a quarterback that falls a little bit more in line with the template we know Sean Payton likes, guys who are going to be where they are expected to be in the pocket, guys who get the ball out on time and stay on schedule, I think the O-line is better than what the perception of it is. And especially in the run game, you get a little bit more dynamic ball carriers back there. And I don't think that's their worst problem on offense. Let me just put it that way. Right tackle, still concerning. They didn't solve that, that's for sure. But I do think the O-line gets blown out of proportion because perception is reality. And the perception is Russ got sacked a lot. Look, season finale, Stidham got sacked a lot. But you guys, Russ makes it hard for O-linemen.
Yeah, Patriot text $2 super. He goes, much rather have Penix than Knicks. MHH forever. Appreciate you, Patriot text. My thing is, putting a bow on what you were talking about, Chad, the bigger issue morale-wise, too, is that I don't think Sean Payton, Russell Wilson in that locker room, what we don't see, what we're not privy to, that kind of cloud hanging over Dove Valley will be removed. So it really won't matter what quarterback, whether it's Bo Nix, whether it's Penix, just not having that tension between the coach and the quarterback, I think will make the whole team better overall.
Mike jumping in again. Thank you, bro. I'm also for trading Surtain if we can get 2 firsts for him. I just think by the time we're good again, PS2 will be in the decline. I'm not against it. Honestly, I'm not against the idea of exploiting the value. I think right now Surtain's value there's a good chance anyway that it's at its all-time high. I think his Pro Bowl this year was mostly based on reputation more than, say, performance. Yeah. That's not to throw him under the bus, but he wasn't the dynamic game changer this year, Zach, that he was in his second year. And I have a sneaking suspicion, it's not necessarily a bold prediction. A bold prediction is I do predict Quinn Miners makes All-Pro. All right. This isn't a bold prediction. It's more of a sneaking suspicion. I wouldn't be shocked if Surtain does not end up on any of the All-Pro teams because he wasn't very productive. So if you could go out, Zach, and get 2 first-round picks for Patrick Surtain under the possibility that this is the peak, this is like he's already reached his ceiling, what would you do?
I don't know. It's tough because I ask myself, how many games do the Broncos win this season directly because of Patrick Surtain II? And as good of a player as he is, and he's tremendous, I can't think of many. In fact, the Broncos season ended because of Patrick Surtain, who couldn't cover Devontae Parker against the lowly Patriots. I would probably think long and hard about taking 2 firsts for the guy because making the Pro Bowl, it made it easier to trade him. It also made it harder to pay him. And I'm looking at the salary cap, Chad, with the Broncos being over. I know it can be finessed and massaged, yada, yada. He's going to command maybe the richest cornerback contract in NFL history. With what money are you going to pay the guy? So that could be another team's problem. And the Broncos, if they want to go this route, could extract 2 first-round picks. That could mean a quarterback and another impact player. You got to at least consider it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I'm not sitting up here telling you that, like, hey, that's what I think the Broncos should go out and actively try to do. But I'm telling you, I would be open to it. If the phone rang, I would listen. Joe, thank you, my friend. He says, thanks for all the prayers for my mom this year. She's doing good after being in the hospital from February to June. Glad to hear it. MHH and all the followers, I can't thank you enough. I can't send stars as often as I'd like, but wanted to say thank you for getting my mind off some very stressful times while she was in the hospital. My pick is Penix. Don't want to move up. Hopefully he's there at 12. Sorry, it's so long. Thank you. No need for sorries, big dog. Glad to hear the positive things, developments for your mom. And yeah, we'll see. There's a chance Penix, a solid chance he could be there at 12.
Yeah, it's good to hear about your mom. Appreciate you filling us in. Anything we can do, as always, let us know.
GGG, the triple G in the house. Appreciate you. As someone who was at this game, it felt like the team didn't come to play, obviously, but almost Sean Payton throwing the game. Love the pod, guys. Thank you. I had that feeling too, like not so much of him throwing the game exactly, but just a Broncos team that didn't, like, snapping the streak against the Raiders in a glorified exhibition game wasn't enough to motivate these guys. Like they didn't go out there and lay it all on the line. They didn't go out there and, give 110%. And I wasn't in the stadium. So I'm going to even base my opinion all the more so based on what you're saying, G.
I mentioned this earlier. We've done so many of these podcasts, end of the season, last game, and it's the same end result. And I've likened it in the past, and I will today, to it being like the last day of school before the summer. Even though you have to go to school, your mind is thinking on the break that you have coming up. I just don't think the Broncos' heads were in it because nothing was really on the line except for a streak that doesn't show up in their bank accounts, Chad, necessarily. I don't think that was the motivating factor to win this game. They just kind of were peeking ahead to 2024. Wrong or right?
Ronnie Ray, we got 2 more guys, and then we're going to dip on out of here. Ronnie jumping in to say, evening Broncos country and Priest. Thanks for all your perspective. Happy we won more games than last year, at least. Definitely more work to be done. On to the off season. Still, Denver Broncos for life and buck 'em. I'm generally in the exact same posture as you, my friend. So thank you. And we got the Ronk jumping in to close things out for us, guys. We got to dip on out of here. Love you, Mike. Love each and every one of you. Keep your chin up and buckle in, actually, because we're kicking off what's sure to be a wild 2024 off season. Can't wait. But before you leave, guys, stick around. We got a couple of messages for you.
It's crazy that this is the last gut reaction of the 2023 NFL Broncos season. Regardless, it was another tremendous episode of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some MHH merch, you know what it is, where it is, check it out. MHHmerch.com and get you some. Also, if you haven't, drop us a like at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
A shout out to Frank K jumping in with an 11th hour super. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you, my friend. And also to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters throwing down tonight, starting with Michaela Parker, the Lady D, Deanna Hendry, Naj Altaf, legendary mythical figures, Mount Rushmore members like also Chris Hernandez. We've got Ted, we got Riptide, Taylor, Patriot Tex, Franklin, Casey Nickel, Mount Rushmore, Mac Dog, aka Quote of the Day, Ryan, Flying Anger Pig, Draft Time Broncos Country, Xander, Aussie Wombat, Mike Edel, Super Chat Mount Rushmore, Jesse, let's see, the Triple G, Ronnie Ray on Facebook, Raj jumping in, Facebook Mount Rushmores like Lawrence Rivera, Michael Ronquillo, Phil McLaughlin, Colby C. Collier, George Fox, plus Ernie, Joe Anthony, Marcus Lewis Hanna. Much love and respect, you guys. Thank you so much. It's been a great football season. Frank, jumping in, when will we get new jerseys? Uniform changes, you mean like colors, Frank? Is that what you're getting at? I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that. I mean, they moved the needle a little bit, Zach, with doing the, what do they call it? My brain's not quite right today. Thank you. Snow cap with the white helmets. Unfortunately, the Broncos have a really bad juju relative to their color rush record. So miss me on all that, but I'm trying to remember some of the reporting from the new president earlier this offseason, but I kind of have a wash rag over my brain with this cold I'm dealing with. But your thoughts, Zach, that will dip.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, they took baby steps, and under Damani Leach, I think they're moving in the direction of having new uniforms. They could tweak it a little bit this coming season, but obviously the Broncos have much bigger fish to fry on the field, Chad, with their quarterback dilemma.
Thank you for jumping in late, my friend. And with that, we gotta get going. So lots of fun, though. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow for the aftermath.
Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.